All of the lighting in this demo is completely dynamic, with the power of Lumen that even includes multi-bounce global illumination. No light maps, no baking here. Without GI, all of that beautiful lighting is gone. With Lumen enabled, we can move the light and the bounce changes instantly.
There's one conversation among many that keeps recurring in the gaming medium, and it concerns the notion of next gen. Over the course of history, video games went through multiple stages of development, and each stage provided more sophisticated gaming experiences than the previous generation. As of now, games have never looked better, and one can't help but wonder, where does it all go from here? How long until developers lose interest in trying to imitate reality? This question takes me back to a certain movement that happened a little over 100 years ago in the artistic scene. In this video, we will try to discuss video games through the lens of art, and we will try to investigate what art itself might tell us about the future of video games. This is Mind Palace.
Oh, now he's playing classical music.
Art, as a human activity that is used to express or communicate emotions, ideas, and worldviews all in an aesthetic manner, it has certainly gone through a series of changes. Changes that often fall under the purpose of providing the new, the fresh, and the groundbreaking each time. And when it comes to classifying art into types, we'll find that there are at least 7 commonly known types, all of which can be considered a part of entertainment due to their nature of being a product sold for people's enjoyment. However, there's one more branch of entertainment that often gets overlooked and frowned upon in the art department, and that is video games. Perhaps the reason for that is because the true origins of video games go all the way back to practical games. These include outdoor games like tag,
What, are you serious?
or hide and seek.
Found you. You can stop hiding.
How'd you find me?
It can also include sports games like football, boxing, or even horse racing. All of these activities that mainly revolve around the aspects of challenge, competitiveness, creativity, and enjoyment were eventually developed into what we know today as video gaming. Contrary to the past, where those activities had barely any relation to art, today video games offer no less amount of creativity in narratives, visuals, and emotions. The only thing that separates it from the other 7 types of art is interactivity, which is basically the involvement of the player. Of course, not unlike any form of art, video games had their share of changes throughout history. Developers raced to improve the gaming experience and push boundaries both visually and technically across several genres. Mechanics went from simple tasks to a set of multiple puzzles, action controls, shooting, driving, and even fishing. Narratives started from the classic good guy versus bad guy stories, only to leap to the most complex and creative storytelling known today in games.
Hey, what happened to sleeping?
Okay, I know it doesn't look like it, but this here is not a bad read.
And last but not least, the visuals went from the 2D to 3D visuals to virtual reality. Fast forward to today, and video games are closest to reality than they've ever been. Right now, it might seem as if video games have covered as much ground as possible, and the only boundary that is currently being pushed is the visual aspect. Case in point is the epidemic of remakes, the idea that there is no call for making a new title, and that good games already exist, they just need to look better. As if the only new thing to offer is next-gen realistic graphics. And from the looks of things, developers might hit a wall very soon.
time to move on.
Games look so realistic now that any details added further will go unnoticed, especially with the newly applied ray tracing technology.
Same, but different. But still same. Thank you. Konnichiwa.
So, where do we go from here? What's the next boundary to be pushed? Let's take a step back and have a closer look at the art movements, specifically paintings. According to a recent discovery made in a cave in Malaga, Spain, the oldest paintings in human history date back to 42,000 years ago. Homo neanderthalis, or the primitive men in the prehistoric era, made these pieces of art to demonstrate their daily lives. This art proved to be even older than the one discovered in the cave of Chauvet-Pont-d'Arc, which, believed to be made by modern humans, is only 32,000 years old. Throughout this whole period, artists kept developing and inspiring to achieve the highest quality possible and to improve and expand upon the previous works of their predecessors, from Da Vinci, Rembrandt, all the way up to Goya. And such was the case until the late 19th century, when Impressionists, also known as New Modernists, emerged in reaction against the classical art of the French Académie des Beaux-Arts. They represented the genesis of aesthetic relativism, where standards were based on relative beauty. It was apparent that Impressionists were bored of imitating reality and decided to focus more on profound meanings and specific styles. Artists such as Claude Monet and Marie Cassatt offered distinct new styles while still maintaining an artistic discipline. Art was becoming deeper and a bit more abstract and more than just a mere imitation of reality. It went from realistic to modernistic, although that would later open the doors to hell, or rather postmodernism. But that is a story for another time. The point is, the same thing happened later to literature, music, and film. Artists in any field inevitably grew tired of imitating and depicting reality and playing according to the rules at some point, and they started looking for more profound and abstract meanings. See where I'm going? Well, if you are thinking what I'm thinking, then we might be onto something here.
That is a perfect copy of reality. The painting is not about replicating the world, it's about interpreting, improving on it, showing something you see. Close your eyes. Trust me. Try to imagine something that doesn't exist, something you've never seen. Now concentrate on how it makes you feel, and let your hand drift across the canvas.
Now I know what else you might be thinking. This is just a reach in that I'm reading too much in it, especially when many people still refuse to see video games as an art, even some of the gamers themselves. But it will make a lot of sense if we pay more attention to the indie corner. Games like Minecraft, Undertale, Journey, and Hades. Notice any pattern? Yes, it's the art style that still evokes a strong artistic beauty even though it is minimalistic. This is the modern movement that the game industry does not know it needs. Independent developers, the fresh, passionate starters that just want to make their ideas and art shown and voices heard in ways no one else did it before. Of course, most game developers started out the same way, with a passionate love project, but eventually got sucked into the AAA scene, where games are mass-produced with glorious graphics as their selling point. But among AAA studios, there still exists passionate and groundbreaking projects with modern art styles. Dishonored, BioShock, Borderlands, Team Fortress. We are talking about games that are considered the best of all time by many. All of them focused more on how a game plays and feels, rather than how realistic it looks. In fact, Dishonored still holds its own almost 10 years later, unlike others that were released after it but still aged poorly. So in a way, a game is immortalized when it offers more thought and emotion with a unique and smart art style. So just like artists before, we've reached a stage in games where we're growing tired of the same old formula. Many aspects have been immensely saturated, especially graphics. Players barely care about how realistic a game looks, and community projects are starting to be more prominent than ever, as more up-and-coming developers are making brand new games where they can focus on ideas and creative gameplay more than graphics. Obviously, all of this is not to say that graphics do not matter. In fact, they do matter in many different ways. And does this mean that all games that aim for realism are bad? Not really. Not as long as they offer more than that. My point is, we might start witnessing an impressionist movement in the gaming industry, whether it is acknowledged and documented or not. Same way it happened years ago with arts. Writing will grow even more complex to evoke emotion and offer food for thought. Developers will get more creative with new game mechanics, and graphics will keep giving more different and unique looks than anything we've seen before in previous games, but more importantly, reality itself. Thank you for watching.
Dried up her guitar upon my knee. I should have sold out when the devil